All right, so then there is factoring by grouping, which is a bit more of a complex factoring method, and it involves factoring things that don't necessarily have common factors. So like when we look at number 13 here, not all of these have something in common. Like these have y's in them, and these two have 14s in them, but they don't all share something. And so why it's called factoring by grouping, because the first step is to group the first two terms together. So this is something that also is only done on groups of 4 terms. So you split the problem in half, and make sure you always put the line, so it's just a line, you always just put the line on the left side of the sign that goes here. You don't want to separate this variable or term from its sign, so just always put on the left side there. And then you do that just as a key to yourself, like for your brain to say, okay, what's the GCF of these two terms? So you're just basically looking at half of the problem at a time. Like, so what's the GCF of these? What's the GCF of these? As a way of making the problem a little simpler to think about. And so when we look at these two, they both have a y in them. That's it. That's all they share. So GCF is of y. And so that y comes out. Y times what? So again, this just that idea of like y times what would give me y squared. Of course, that would just be y. And then y times what would give me negative 14y. And so I did y times negative 14 to get negative 14y. So there's the factor of that part. And then you want to go and look at the other part. You can just ask yourself, what's the GCF of these two? And so the GCF here, this one's a little weird sometimes. Like this one, there's just a y, and this one's a 14, and there was a 1 right there, but there's no y's here, so I can't take a y out of both of these. They don't share any numbers besides 1. So when there's nothing left, the GCF is 1. So it's kind of like your last ditch effort there is, if there's nothing else in common, then everything always has 1 in common with something else. So that is a positive 1. So remember, you're supposed to take the sign of the first term. So you do need to put a plus 1 here, not just a 1. So make sure you do that. Then 1 times what, right? So 1 times what is y. Well, 1 times y is y. And 1 times what is negative 14. So 1 times negative 14 is negative 14. So we end up with this. I'll clean up some of this stuff. And so the next step is a little odd sounding, but what you're going to do is look for common factors here and here. And so the idea is, like, when you look at these two things as a whole, that they both have a y minus 14 in them. And so we can take that y minus 14 out. So just like these both had a y in them, and we took that y out, and these both had a 1 in them, so we took that 1 out. This and this both have a y minus 14 in them, so you can take that y minus 14 out. So I take that y minus 14 out. So it would look like this. Y minus 14. So when we take something out, it goes to the front. We're taking it out, it means it's something outside of another set of parentheses. Just like when we took the y out here, it ended up outside. The 1 out here, it ends up on the outside. And we had to say, well, what was in there? Right? And so y minus 14 times what was this? Well, the y. And then y minus 14 times what was this? Well, it was y minus 14 times 1, positive 1. So I like to think of those as my leftovers, those things that are on that side. So notice how the leftovers go together. And then the y minus 14s went together. Okay. So these two things are both right here. And then these two things are both right here. And this whole thing, when you distribute it back here, would get us to this. So that's the factorization using factoring by grouping. So when you're doing factoring by grouping, you end up with 2 sets of parentheses. All right, this is the next one. I want to just check, is there anything I can take out of everything? These have 5s in them, and they also have v's in them. This doesn't have a 5 in it or a v in it. these have 6 in them. These don't have 6 in them, so there's nothing I can take out of everything. So I guess cut the problem in half. I'll look at that first pairing and say, what do they have in common? They both have 5v in them, so that 5v would come outside. And then again, that other way you can think of this is we put 5v down here, put 5v out here, so that common factor is what ends up on the outside. So 5v times what is 25v? Well, it'd be 5v times 5v. And then 5v times what is 5v? Well, 5v times 1 is 5v, or what's 5v divided by 5v, which is 1, positive 1. And that part really sometimes confuses people. They just want to like cancel it and make it a 0. But when you cancel with division, it leaves us with a 1, right? Like 7 divided by 7 isn't 0, right? 7 divided by 7 is 1, right? And I'm looking here and say, what do they have in common? And 30 and 6 are both multiples of 6. And then since that first term is negative, I want to take out a negative 6. So it doesn't matter what sign the second term is. It happens to also be negative. That's just a coincidence. Really what we're doing is looking here. So take out a negative 6. Make sure you get that there. Parentheses. Negative 30 divided by negative 6 is positive 5. And v, no canceling there, so it's just v. And then negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1, positive 1. So again, something you're going to check when you're doing factoring by grouping is that these two sets of parentheses should always be the same. So if those two things there are not exactly the same, if it's just the sign that's off, like if this one says 5e plus 1, this one says 5e minus 1, something's going wrong, you got to stop. So don't try to move forward. But those two things that are the same go together, so 5e plus 1 goes together, and then our leftovers go together, the 5e and the minus 6 go together. And then there's our factors, that those two things multiplied together will get us back where we started. They're equal to each other, just written in different forms. All right, last one. Okay. If I look through all these, I cannot find a common factor. Like these have 2, or these have all our multiples of 2. These all have a 3 in them. I think, I'm not sure that's 3 in it, but these have 3 in it. These have x's, but this doesn't have x, so no common factors. We'll cut it in half. Look for common factors here. 6 and 16 are both multiples of 2, and they both have an x, so 2x. And 2x times what is 6x squared? Well, we need 2x times 3, and then another x. And then 2x times what is negative 16x? It'd be negative 8. And then the next set, and say, what do they have in common? I know these are both multiples of 7. There's 3 7s here, and there's 8 7s here. So then I'm going to take out a negative here because it's negative. So negative 7, and then they don't both have x's, right? So I can't take an x. So negative 7 times what is negative 21x? Well, negative 7 times 3 is 21, and we need an x. And negative 7 times what would be positive 56? Well, I would need to be negative 8. Look at here, see if they're the same. Those are the same, so we can move on. And then those parts that are the same come out, 3x minus 8. And then the leftovers, which is the 2x and the minus 7. So there's our factor grouping. You can also write those the other order if you want, it does not matter. The 2x minus 7 can go first, and the 3x minus 8 goes second. So that doesn't matter what order you put the whole sets of parentheses in, but the things inside the parentheses cannot be rearranged. So other way you could see that. All right, there's factoring by grouping. Hopefully it went well.